you several times during the orientation program about the important role that lawyers play in terms of protecting the integrity of the legal system. Tomorrow you're going to sit in on your very first official law school class and begin your own journey towards becoming a member of the legal profession. And before you know it, and the 3 years will pass more quickly than you can ever imagine, you will stand before a judge and you will take an oath to uphold the laws of the jurisdiction in which you're going to practice, and also to uphold the ideals of the legal profession. That oath will mark the culmination of an educational experience that most students find to be one of the most rewarding and challenging experiences of their lives. And to mark the beginning of your path to the profession, we have asked the Honorable Steve Leben, a judge on the Kansas Court of Appeals and a 1982 graduate of the KU Law School, to say a few words to you and administer an oath. Judge Leben is a graduate of the El Dorado High School. After graduating from the KU Law School, I did pronounce that correctly.
Yes.
I've been in Kansas long enough to know about El Dorado. After graduating from law school, he practiced law in Kansas City and served for 14 years as a Kansas district judge in Johnson County. He was appointed to the Kansas Court of Appeals in 2007. He is a prolific author of articles and publications relating to law. He has served as president of the American Judges Association, editor of the Court Review, a national journal for judges, and he has received the Distinguished Service Award from the National Center for State Courts. I'm sure he will agree, however, that his most prestigious position is to serve as an adjunct professor at the KU Law School, where his class in legislation and statutory interpretation is considered by many of his students to be one of the most useful classes that they take in law school. Ladies and gentlemen, I introduce to you the Honorable Judge Steve Leben.
We even got in the paid promotional announcement for my class. So spring semester, second or third year legislation class, you'll learn how to interpret statutes. I'm very pleased to be here today on behalf of the alumni of this school to welcome you to what we believe will be a great time over the next 2 to 3 years, depending upon how long you choose to be here. Most of you for 3, and we're happy you'll be here for that. As you begin your journey through Green Hall, I wanted to give you a few thoughts. I looked through your program over the last several days, and Dean Mazza also told me that I couldn't repeat anything you'd already heard, and he gave me a very strict time limit, 7 minutes and 12 seconds. Tax professors are very precise. You'll learn that as you go through law school too. I think I've got a couple things, though, that I can give you that you've not yet heard, and will place into some context the oath that I'd like to administer to you in just a minute. One thing I know you haven't heard is what we told students when I was giving orientation presentations as a third-year law student in 1981. We didn't have 5 days of presentations. Our orientation then consisted of one session in a large classroom with some faculty talking, and then one 30-minute session with some third-year students to talk about whatever they wanted to tell you. And a friend of mine and I taught a particular study method that I want to talk to you about. But there's a little bit of a time gap from 1981 to the present. How many of you know what TV Guide is? Okay, well, it's not bought nearly as much as it was. It was in every supermarket back then, and it told you what was on those 3 over-the-air channels, plus ESPN and CNN and a few things we relied upon at the time. Well, what we told people was there's a very simple way to get through law school. You follow the TV Guide study method. And the way that works is every week you get your TV Guide, you mark all the programs you need to watch, and then you work your studies around that. Because we have to have priorities. And there actually was a point to that, which was you need to find things that are not law and spend time on them every week so that you don't go crazy. But hopefully you've gotten that and many more practical tips while you've been here over the last 5 days. What I want to talk to today are some of the things that really make lawyers different than any other profession. My wife is a doctor, and I will concede right away that that's an honorable and very important profession. But it differs in law in some important respects that I'd like you to think about. Medical schools have ceremonies, and my stepdaughter participated in one just a few weeks ago, in which their new medical students receive a white coat. And they have a big ceremony, and it symbolizes their entry into a new profession, one that is very important and one that they need to take seriously as they study for it. But I would submit to you that for lawyers, there are at least two things that make our profession different than any other. First, our profession is critical to the preservation of rights in our society. And I want to give you just one example of that. This is something I've explained several times. We have visiting groups come from foreign countries to our state capitol on tours. And we've had two that I've spoken to recently from former Soviet republics. And they're interested in lots of things about our system and what the rights are that people have. Well, in the United States, under our Constitution, we have guaranteed rights of due process. And any time the government is going to take away from us either liberty or property, they have to give us due process. Now, Rick Levy and others will talk to you in great detail about what's liberty or what's property. But let me just give you one example. Everyone has these rights in our country, and that includes even people who are in prison. In a prison, they need to keep discipline, so they have a disciplinary system and lots of rules people have to follow. And if they don't follow the rule, they'll bring a complaint. And the prisoner will get a formal hearing. The discipline may be something as simple as taking away $20 from their inmate account that they can use to buy things in the commissary. I spent 6 hours last weekend working on a case as an appellate judge in Kansas where a prisoner lost $20 for the violation I'm about to tell you about. He was in an administrative confinement. He's passing a sandwich that's in a plastic bag from cell to cell. He's one of the cells along the way, but it doesn't get close enough to his cell, so he throws out a bed sheet to pull it in, and that gets the guard's attention, and he's the guy caught with the sandwich. Inside the sandwich is tobacco, which is contraband in the prison. He, of course, claims, I had no idea there was tobacco in there. Well, he got a hearing on that. He got the right to call witnesses. They didn't allow him all four of the witnesses, only two of them, which ended up on appeal to the Kansas Court of Appeals about whether he got due process. There's also the little problem of whether he had to know there was tobacco in the sandwich, which if 2 weeks from now I could give you the answer to, but it's not out yet. But inmates and everybody else has these rights in our country, and I think it's one of the incredible things we have, that we have rights that we don't rely upon some government commission to come in and say, I think it's time now to see if Kansas prisons are respecting the rights of people in Kansas. The prisoner can initiate a claim saying, my rights have not been protected. A judge will look at it, and even an appellate court will spend their time with that. I don't know any other country in the world where that type of attention is paid to individual rights. And it occurs only because we have law-trained people who can staff all of the systems that are required to have that work. A second thing about lawyers and the preservation of our rights is that we have very detailed rules of procedure and ethics. Doctors take what's called the Hippocratic Oath, and that is a very nice thing, but it's so broad that you can't actually tell from the Hippocratic Oath what a doctor is supposed to do when the types of problems that come up in real life come up. We lawyers are very rule-oriented, and we have a ton of rules about what our ethical obligations are in almost any situation. But that's important because of the place we play in society, both as to the preservation of our rights and as to the assistance we provide to individuals who are vulnerable at the time they are getting legal assistance. So we have what are probably the most extensive ethic rules of any profession, and they are actually enforced. One final example of how our profession differs from others, and this is really based on the first 2 points. Some of you will choose to practice law in Missouri. I went first to a Kansas City, Missouri law firm, took the Missouri bar, and was admitted there first. And one of the first things that happened to me was I was appointed to represent an indigent juvenile defendant in the Missouri court system. Well, at that time, everyone who came into practice in Kansas City would be appointed to a juvenile case for no compensation. The fact of the matter is in Missouri, and there's a Missouri Supreme Court case that just came out last December reaffirming this, an attorney in Missouri can be appointed at any time by any court to represent any person for free. In Missouri, when the United States Supreme Court said that there was a right to an attorney in 1963 in the Gideon case, the Missouri legislature did not step up to the plate and say, we will fund that. So the court appointed attorneys for free. And they provided that representation. They did that until 1971 when the Supreme Court over there forced the legislature's hand. But they've always kept the principle that an attorney, as part of their oath as an attorney, had a duty to represent people and to help the public service and the public good. They have recognized that at some point that could become so onerous a burden that it would be unconstitutional, but they have not yet found that point. And I would submit to you that all of these things make the profession you are about to enter a different one than any other group of people entering a professional school are doing at this time. With that, I would like to move on to an oath that a colleague of mine in the Kansas Appellate Courts, Carol Beyer, who's a member of our Supreme Court, wrote for this occasion. Carol intended this to reflect on your role as participants in a serious enterprise, and she put it this way: you will be the face of justice to your fellows, a trained intellect wedded to a compassionate heart. And I will tell you that as you go through your career as lawyers, people will look to you to find out the answer to everything. People who work in our court clerk's offices, when there's a major trial going on nationally, they are asked, what's this deal about whatever it may be? And you will be answering those questions from here on out for your families, your friends, and others. Carol expressed this hope when she came here to give the oath, which is that you will find the fulfillment and friendship in this enterprise that she has found. I will tell you, I have certainly found it too. We hope you will cherish the times you will spend learning the law over the next 3 years. So if you will, please, if you're able, stand and raise your right hand. Please repeat after me. I understand that I am now entering the legal profession.
I understand that I am now entering the legal profession.
A learned, proud, and noble profession.
A learned, proud, and noble profession.
I further understand that it is my personal responsibility.
I further understand that it is my personal responsibility.
Ever to uphold the honor of this profession.
Ever to uphold the honor of this profession.
And to behave with integrity and respect.
And to behave with integrity and respect.
In the academic endeavor I am about to undertake.
In the academic endeavor I am about to undertake.
I promise to pursue the highest ideals of the bar.
I promise to pursue the highest ideals of the bar.
Throughout law school and in my career.
Throughout law school and in my career.
I shall strive to remember that my education and training.
I shall strive to remember that my education and training.
To serve in the cause of justice.
To serve in the cause of justice.
Are privileges most worthy.
Are privileges most worthy.
Of my nurture and protection.
Of my nurture and protection.
Congratulations, and again, best of luck over the next 3 years. Please be seated.